He did a beautiful job. Just don't say anything, please.
Okay, let's go. Okay, look at the Torah, Bechukotai, page Mem Hey. The pasuk says, let's go. It's late. In Bechukotai Telechu, the pasuk says simply means if you go in my statutes. So he says in Yamir Azal, Ein im al lashon tachnunim. It means Hashem is actually begging us, please go in my ways. Shenam alu ami shemeli. If it only my Yidden would listen to me, Yisrael b'dracha yaleichu. The tzarich love, and we need to understand. Inyan tachnunim elu mahim. What is this like begging of Hashem that we should keep mitzvahs? What does that mean? Gam tzarich lahavin. Lashon b'chukotai. It says the expression Bechukotai, which is the expression of chukim. Asher Pirish Razal, the Gemara says in Kedushin, al pasuk as chukotai tishmeru. You should keep chukotai tishmeru, chukei shechakakti lachem, the laws that I engraved for you. So Bechukotai comes from the word chakika, which means engraved. So we know there are mitzvahs that are called chukim and mishpatim and edus. But Lepel, why over here does the Torah use the word Bechukotai from the expression of chakika, of engraved? What does it mean, the expression of going in mitzvahs? Where are you going? You do mitzvahs. You don't go mitzvahs. Bechukotai telecha means, in other words, now the Rabbi is asking on each word. Im bechukotai telecha. It means I'm begging you. What is this begging that Hashem is begging us? Secondly, chukotai, what's this expression of engraved? And thirdly, telecha, where are we going? You know, keeping them, what, guarding them, whatever. So he says like this: Hine yedua ki b'Torah sheb'ksav yesh beis min ksiva. There's two types of writing in the Torah sheb'ksav. Ki b'luchos namar v'michtav michtav elokim hu charis al luchos. There was a writing of the luchos, which, as the pasuk says, charis al luchos, meaning sheksav hu me'atzmim shal luchos. The ksav charis al luchos means engraved in the luchos. The luchos wasn't written like ink on parchment, which is two separate entities. The engravement means it's part and parcel of the stone. Asher nechkak mehem ubehem v'lahoyu inyan ha'isis. Inyan mohutz b'fnei atzmim. There were no separate entity called letters. When you have ink on parchment or ink on paper, so there's ink and there's parchment, two separate entities that are joined. Here, the letters are part and parcel of the actual stone itself. Avol shar Torah sheb'ksav. But the rest of Torah sheb'ksav is the yeksuv ala kaf, is ink written on parchment. Asher eisi semos b'fnei atzmi. They're separate entity. V'lemi atzmi it's a klaf. V'nikra Torah sheb'ksav ki ha-Torah mulubeshes b'ksav v'dal. Why does it mean? What's the expression Torah sheb'ksav? The Rebbe says it means the Torah comes into the writing. Torah sheb'ksav. Yeah, I mean Torah which is in the writing. So the Rebbe is writing like this: there's written letters and there's engraved letters. The Zohar says there's three knots: Yidden, Torah, and Hashem. Yisrael miskashim be'raisa v'raisa b'kudsha b'richu. The Yidden connect to Torah, and Torah connects to the Yidden. To Hashem, I mean. So it's known that the Rebbe asks the question: if that's the case, there's really two knots, not three knots. If you have A, B, and C, A is tied to B, and B is tied to C. So why is it three knots? It's only two knots. And the Zohar says the expression Klas Kishrin. So the Rebbe explains what it means is because Eraisa and Yidden are connected, are bound again. You know, it's a circular. Yidden are tied to Torah, Torah to Hashem, and Hashem to Yidden. So it's actually one, it's not two knots, it's actually three knots. Okay. We have enough problem with Jews. What happened to your head? Your head fell off. What?
I told this to someone, so they said, so I don't need to do Torah and mitzvahs, then I'm already connected automatically.
Yeah, the cardiac Jews, I mean.
Huh?
The cardiac Jews.
Cardiac, yeah.
Today they have everything self-driving, self-everything. That's a very good point, but Al Rebbe answers that question in Perek Dalet of Tanya. The point is that the neshama is connected to Hashem l'mayla. Down here, when the neshama is in the body and nefesh abamis, so therefore it's possible for the nefesh to be separated from Hashem. Nefesh kisechta. It's possible for a nefesh to sin. Therefore, down here, yes, neshamas are, not only that, the question is even stronger. Neshamas are greater than Torah. Right? We learned that many times. Neshamas are greater than Torah. So why do I need Torah? I'm self-connected, higher than Torah. But the answer is, it's only Torah, that's the way the neshamas are l'mayla, pre-guf. Once the neshama comes into the guf and nefesh abamis, it's lower than Torah. Torah cannot become tamei. A yid could become tamei. Right? Torah is not makabel tumah. A yid becomes sinful, could become makabel tumah. So down here, in order to connect Hashem, you need Torah mitzvahs. So yeah, we're connected. The pintalid, which is connected to the essence of Hashem, that's not the chelik of the neshama that's in the body. That's chelik of the neshama, that's the essence of the neshama, which is yichida, which is not in nefesh or neshama is in the body, not chay yichida. Again, b'chol nitzes v'nefesh shulukis mi Yisrael. Therefore, in every spark of nefesh of a yid, yesh gam kim beis b'chinas elu. Therefore, it's like this. If Torah has written and engraved letters, and Yidden and Torah are one, that means even the Yidden, there's two levels. There's written letters and engraved letters. There's Eisis HaChakukim, Eisis HaKsuvim. Because if Torah and Yidden are the same thing, so in Torah there's two types of letter, written and engraved, so then by Yidden there's engraved level of Yiddishkeit, there's a written level of Yiddishkeit. The Hinek it says in the Pasuk, when Satin Chomahalchem in Eindem Ha'ed, Pasuk says, Hashem says, I'm going to put you, neshamas, as goers amongst the standers. That means the malachim are called standing. Srafim Eindem, malachim are called standing, and Yidden are called mahalchim. He said, Vinei Eindem he malachim. Eindem refers to the malachim that stand in one place. Mahalchim in neshamas close Yisrael, and going is in neshamas of Yidden. And the Rebbe explains in many places that even though by malachim it also says they go, but because their ascent is a gradual ascent, it's connected to the earlier level, so therefore they're still called Eimdim. Yidden, on the other hand, when they're mahalach, means they jump infinitely from one level to a much, much, much greater level. So therefore they're called mahalchim, malachim are called Eimdim, even though malachim also go higher. But it's a gradual ascent versus a going ascent.
Men also walk horizontally, and malachim, they don't have legs to walk.
So they're horizontal or vertical?
Horizontal is not.
They hover. And how do they hover?
They go around, they don't really walk.
See, if you be learning Rambam, the 3 chapters a day, in today's share of Rambam, it speaks about the angels, that they're a spiritual entity. They have a body, by the way, but it's a spiritual body. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that Malachim have a guf, but it's only from 2 elements, fire and air, versus everything else that has 4 elements, fire, air, earth, and water. Earth and water are very mundane, very tangible. Malachim have a body, but it's the spiritual body. When you say Malachim, we're talking about with wings and all that stuff. There's no Malachim with wings. Malachim don't have wings. Wings is a physical phenomenon that spiritual angels can't have. What it means is the concept of wings. They fly means they go higher. But Malachim, when you have the expression of Malachim hovering or Malachim standing, Srafim Emdim Mimalai, Srafim standing above them, above him, yeah? It's all spiritual levels. In fact, the Rambam gives a mashal. If you say, this guy is a Chacham Gadol, he's a greater Chacham than a guy not as smart as him. Yeah? What do you mean? He's big and this guy's small? It's figuratively speaking. When you say somebody has a deep head, it doesn't mean his head is 12 feet deep. When you say somebody has a big heart, it doesn't mean physically he has a big heart, he'd be dead. God forbid. So it's figuratively speaking. When you say deep head, you're not measuring it in physical language. pits, oceans you measure with a ruler, how many inches, how many feet, right? Spirituality you don't measure, it's a different measuring point. So when you speak about angels hovering over, it means they're hovering, they're in a higher level, meaning they have a greater understanding of godliness than lower levels do. Anyway, back here. So he says, to understand, why are the malachim called standers if they also go up, really? In Iksib, Bidvar Hashem Nas Mishmaim Navruach Piv Kol Tzvam. Hainu Sham Malachim Malkim Malkim Chaitzam. Ubriyasam Midiburi Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu. Malachim were created, like it says, Bidvar Hashem Shemayim Nasu Uvruach Piv Kol Tzvam. Now, Malachim were created with the words of Hashem, the 10 utterances. That's sort of my mothers. Hagam she'en lo'em demus. What?
Dvar Hashem and Ruach Piv is the same thing? Because it says Ruach Piv Tzvam.
Ruach Piv is a higher level. Kol Tzvam.
But it's still deeper.
It's still deeper. Ruach Piv is the air from the mouth, the speech. No, it's not. That's what he's saying. It's not like Neshama. What?
Why Hashem needed malachim?
Why does Hashem need us?
Why can't he deal with us directly?
So why does he need Atzilas, B'riyah, Tzir, and Asiyah? Because that's what he wanted. In Kabbalah, you know, when we ask the question always, why did Hashem create the world? So in Chassidus, there's always an answer, L'dira b'tachteinu, right? Tzav HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael Dira b'tachteinu. In Kabbalah, the answer is, why did the Eibishter create you? L'gal shleimus kechesav u'po'leisav, to reveal his powers, or to, you know, whatever. There are different reasons in Kabbalah, which is not a contradiction. Those reasons are why Hashem created Atzilus. Why he created this world is Dira b'tachteinu. So yeah, the Eibishter created Atzilus because that's a certain level of revelation of Hashem. Does Hashem need angels to serve him? No. Look at the word himself. He chose to have servants like a king's. They have servants that serve him. So Hashem, why down here do kings have servants serving them? Because Lamaila, in Malchus Derekia, in the heavenly kingdom, there's servants that serve him, i.e. called the Malachim. Can Hashem do it without the Malachim? Of course. Of what?
Tachtonim doesn't allude to
Poshim, sinners?
sinners and the
It means the lowest world, that there can't be anything lower, which is full of evil, yes.
Possibility of sin, so it doesn't mean it's
I feel
bad.
very comfortable.
The world, Elam Asiyah, is Rubi Kakulera. What the Shoim gave him, right? That's what the Rebbe says in Tanya.
God is going to overpass and come down to my level.
To your level. Even
Tachtonim, you know, the bottom.
even to you. And that is God's greatness. He can even come down to you. Okay. So he says, they come to Dibur Agam Shenli Dumutzaguf, even though Hashem doesn't have a body, so Hashem doesn't speak. Nevertheless, Dibur Teir Kloshim B'nei Adam, the Ikaris is Galus Eirel B'chinis Nivraim B'Shem Dibur. Like we learned many, many times. What is the definition of speech by Hashem? Just like the concept of speech is to reveal something hidden, to reveal a thought which was hidden. So the concept of Dibur is Gili Ahelam, to reveal something concealed. So Dibur in Torah by Hashem means Hashem revealed the power. Letters of speech are separate entities, right? Even in the Sefer Torah, Mashal. You can't have two connecting letters. If you have two letters touching each other, the whole Sefer Torah is not kosher. You have to have separate letters. And then from one speech, you'll never, in other words, like this, from the letters Aleph, Beis, you will only create, let's use Torah words. From the word Yehi Od, from the letters Aleph, Vav, Reish, you're only going to have light. You're not going to have any other creation. Right? So Aleph Vav Reish is because there's three separate letters, Aleph Vav Reish, which together means odd, so you're going to have only light coming from it. Nothing else will come from it. It's limited in what it is. Therefore, those malachim that are level Ava, like Michal, or Avidas Mechinas here, like the level of Gavriel, which is Gvura, they are in one level. In other words, Michal can never become Gavriel, and Gavriel can never become Michal, because one's Ava, one's Yira. Ava cannot become Yira, and Yira cannot become Ava, because they are established what they are. The way they were created, that's what they are. And this love and fear that Michal and Gavriel are given from the beginning of time, lo yeshanes tafkidam. They will never change it. Like it says, they stand on one level. Again, Michal will never become Yira, Gvura, and Gavriel will never become Ava. Avol Neshamis Yisrael Aleim Nemer Yisrael Alu b'Machshava. They come from a lofty level of Machshava. Ashemaka Chaytza Meitzis HaMachshava. The Yidden source is not from the level of Dibur, like we know. Hashem didn't say Yehi Neshama. Hashem said Nasa Adam. He said Nasa Adam, but he didn't say Nasa Neshamis or Yehi Neshamis. Why? Because they don't come from Dibur. They come from the level of blowing. Vayipach be'apov, which here the Alter Rebbe is explaining is the level of machshava. Hashem kemayin and nevei tamid constantly go and go from level to level. In other words, dibur, you could stop talking. Machshava, you can never stop thinking. That's why I learned. One second. That's why we learned. The Alter Rebbe says in Torah and other places that why is Adam called Adam? Aleph represents machshava, Dalet is dibur, and Mem is Maisa. So Aleph, Dalet, Mem is machshava, dibur, and Maisa. So if so, he should be called Madame, machshava, dibur, and Maisa. That would be French for women. He should be called Madame. So the Alter Rebbe says, why is machshava called Aleph? Because it's so one with the nefesh. It's called Levush HaMiyuchad. It's so bound to the nefesh, and that's why you can never stop thinking. Because if the nefesh is always functioning, then machshava is always functioning because it's one with the nefesh. That's why Chassidus explains, Hirhure Avera, Kosheme Avera. Why is thought of sin worse in a certain level? You don't get punished for it because this is an action mode. But conceptually, why is thought a bigger blemish than speech and action? Because thought is closer one with the nefesh. So if you blemish thought, you're blemishing the nefesh more than speech and action. What?
That's the neshama.
Right, we're talking about the
But
neshama.
then that the body says nasa.
Right, the body is not
So
from...
when he created the body, that was with people.
Yeah. It doesn't say v'yipach guf. The neshama is v'yipach ba'apav. The guf is v'yamel kim nasa adam. It's like any all the other utterances.
And it wasn't a package deal. There was a dead body, and then he had to blow, as opposed to everything else in creation.
My friend, learn Chumash.
I know.
By animals, it doesn't say Hashem created an animal and then he put life in them. By Adam, first he created a person, Mino Adama, and then it says, Vayipach bi'apav nishmas chayim. Afterwards, Hashem blew a neshama, because a neshama and guf are two separate entities. Everything else, the soul of an animal, right, or whatever, was created with dibur. Together, simultaneously. This dibur created an animal with the, like we learned in Shaykh Amunah, right? The name of the animal, the chayis of the animal, that was created simultaneously with speech. By a neshama, there's a speech level. By a yid, there's a speech level called the body, and there's the neshama. K'mayim razal meiv davar mitech davar. U'meyad benafel davar echad b'machshava. As soon as a thought comes in, Yisalach be'echava, it will go more. There was the famous Rugged Shavar. The Rugged Shavar said the hardest day for him was Shabbos. He used to have terrible headaches on Shabbos. because when he was learning, his mind was, yeah. So during the week, he had a brainstorm. So he wrote it down before the next brainstorm came. On Shabbos, he can't write. So he was having brainstorm. He tried to remember, new brainstorm came, he said he got such headaches. He used to wear a damp shmat around his head that he should not have these terrible headaches on Shabbos.
Did he remember his condition?
I'm sure he did. That's how the Rebbe explains it. We learned the middle Rebbe used to write very fast. It says if the shamus didn't put another piece of paper under it, he would write on the table. So the Rebbe says not because he wrote fast. The Rebbe writes by the middle Rebbe, his writing was so bottled to the brain, it worked as quick as the brain. Some people stutter. A lot of brilliant people stutter, and the reason because the mind works quicker than the mouth. The mouth can't work as fast as the mind. By Mittel Rebbe, the power of writing was bottled to the moyach. He worked as quick as the head did. So he was able to write as quick as he thought. Don't think too much about it. It ain't happening to us. Okay, weiter. Therefore, so the Alter Rebbe is explaining like this. Speech is what it is. The word you said is the word you said. Thought can constantly keep going. From one thought you get another thought. One thought, another thought, you get another thought. It's constantly going. So that's the level of mahalchim. Because machshava works in a way of hiluch. It keeps going level to level. Dibur, you can be quiet, except if you're in shul. Then you can't be quiet. But otherwise, you can be quiet. That the nar came out of Eden to water the garden. What's the union of a nahar? A lake doesn't constantly move. A river flows. That means it's continuous flowing in a river. That's level nar yetzim Eden, which is moker achachma, which is called Torah Shebiksav.